Hi, I'm Leanne. Welcome to my small batch Big Taste kitchen. And today we are making raspberry white chocolate bars. They have a layer of shortbread, then a gooey layer of raspberry topped with some crunchy goodness. And then we're gonna drizzle them with white chocolate. They are so good. All right, now for these raspberry white chocolate bars, we're gonna use a 9x5 loaf pan, bread pan. We've used lots of times for our bar cookies, and I have made a parchment sling because it makes it so much easier to remove the bars from the pan when we use one of these. So I have a video, you can find it right up there, that shows you how to cut the parchment sling, and we just press it right down into our pan, and your pan is aligned. So highly recommend doing this. If you don't have parchment paper, make sure that you grease the pan with some nonstick spray or some butter. All right, now for our bars, we are gonna start with 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We're gonna use 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And then I'm going to use 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Now I am using salted butter. If you've got unsalted butter, go ahead and put in like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. All right, now we're just going to squish that together a bit and add in a 1/4 cup of salted melted butter. Now I have a little story to tell you because this flavor combination of raspberry and white chocolate is one of my very, very favorite flavor combinations. And I remember the exact day I had this flavor combination for the first time. The reason I remember it is because it was the day I gave birth to my youngest daughter, Tessa, who is now 31. So it was 31 years ago. A friend of mine, April, came to visit me in the hospital, and April always came bearing gifts, and they were usually delicious food gifts. And she brought to the hospital a carton of raspberries and a white chocolate bar. And she says, now, you have to do this, eat this a specific way. She says you need to put 2 raspberries in your mouth, then take a bite of the white chocolate. It had to be eaten together. Well, she was right. It was amazing and has been one of my favorite flavor combinations for 31 years. So today we've taken that flavor combination and we're putting it into a gooey, yummy bar cookie. All right, we've got this mixed together till it looks crumbly. All right, now we're gonna take 1/3 cup, and I'm just gonna set aside 1/3 cup of this crumb mixture because this is gonna be our crunchy topping that is gonna go on top. We're gonna grab our aligned loaf pan, and then we're just going to pour the rest of it into there. And then we're gonna push it into the bottom of our pan into just a nice even layer. And this is gonna form the crust of our raspberry white chocolate bar. All right, we're gonna set that aside, and then we're gonna prepare our raspberry layer. Now in my bowl, I have 3/4 cup of raspberries. Now, these raspberries were really big, so I cut some of them in half, so just know that some of mine are cut in half, some aren't, just because of the size of them. All right, and to our raspberries, we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. That's gonna be a thickening agent to thicken up the juices from those raspberries. Now, I've only ever made these with fresh raspberries versus frozen raspberries. If you're gonna use frozen raspberries, I would thaw them first and drain them to get out that extra liquid. But like I said, I've only made it with fresh. So then we're gonna add in 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. And we're just gonna toss that together. Get those raspberries coated, but you're gonna end up with a lot of extra powder in there, so don't worry about that. All right, then we're gonna take a loaf pan, and we're just gonna pour this mixture right on top of that shortbread crust. Try to just evenly distribute it over the top. And yes, that's gonna be a lot of dry ingredients just in there, but trust me on this one, it's gonna work. And then I just like to try to evenly distribute the raspberries because we wanna have a raspberry in every bite. So just kind of evenly distribute them across the top of the crust. We're gonna take that remaining 1/3 cup of the crumb topping, and we are just going to sprinkle that over the top. All right, we got the topping on there. It is ready to go into a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for 25 to 30 minutes or until it's nice and golden brown on the top. All right, while those bars are baking, they're gonna bake and then we're gonna let them cool. We're gonna mix up our white chocolate drizzle. So I'm using white chocolate chips for this, and I have melted them in the microwave. Now just know that white chocolate burns a lot quicker and easier than milk chocolate, dark chocolate, semi-sweet chocolate. So I do it in my microwave, and I do it in about 20-second increments, and I'll stop it and I'll stir it and continue to do that till it's just nice and melted and smooth. So just be, kind of gradually do it and stir it quite often so it doesn't burn. Now, if you don't have a microwave, you can totally melt this on the stove top. And then we're gonna take, I'm using heavy whipping cream. You could use half and half, regular milk if that's all you have. We're gonna add just enough to this chocolate to give it a nice drizzling consistency. So I'm gonna start out probably with about a tablespoon. I'll mix that up. Now, if you're using a heavier milk like whipping cream, it's gonna take more than if you're using a thinner, just regular milk. Okay, not quite there yet. We're gonna add a little bit more. And if it gets too thin, go ahead and just let it sit for a while and it'll start to thicken up as it cools. All right, we're about there, I think. All right, our bars are done. They have cooled. You don't have to let them cool totally, but I like to let them cool a while so that that chocolate doesn't totally melt into the bar when I put it on. All right, since we have this nice parchment sling, our bars are just gonna lift out of our pan. Super easy. And then you can leave them on the parchment. You can slide it off. Because I'm gonna drizzle, I'm actually gonna take this parchment paper and put it underneath to help catch the drizzle so I don't have a big mess on my counter. And then you're just gonna take your chocolate and drizzle it over the top. So if you're in a hurry to enjoy these, they're easier to cut if the white chocolate has set up. So I will pop them in the refrigerator for 15-20 minutes or so for that white chocolate to harden up. And then they are ready to cut into and enjoy. Now, the great thing about this raspberry white chocolate bar is you can substitute in any fruit you like. You could use strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, although personally, raspberries are my favorite. And I never eat this raspberry white chocolate flavor combination without thinking of my friend April, who first introduced it to me 30 plus years ago. So now all you have left to do is we're just gonna slice them up. You can slice them into 4 pieces, into 8 pieces, just depending on how many you're serving, but look at that. That yummy shortbread crust, a gooey raspberry middle, and then a crunchy shortbread topping drizzled with white chocolate. I hope you love this flavor combination as much as I do. Now, if you're looking for some other fun small batch bar cookie recipes, check on up there, and I'll see you in the next video.